Hi, happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining me here tonight. So we are continuing the Aurifil block of the month for July, and this is the block that I designed for this project, so I'm extra excited this week to be working on it with you. So thanks for joining me here. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for the beginning crafter. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific. It's a time that we can relax and craft. And I'm here for about an hour, and I work on projects from beginning to end, so you can be part of the entire process along the way. And tonight we are continuing. This is day 2 of the Aurifil block of the month. So this is the Tuscany block. It is the July block. So it's based on Tuscany and also the orange colors from the Aurifil Builder set of thread. So we can make it with I think I just clicked the link, you guys. We can make it with the embroidery or without. So here, I just zoomed in. There's an example of it without. And this is a super duper duper quick and easy quilt block that I still think looks super cute. So if you're a beginner, this is perfect for you guys. Last night, we were able to cut all of the fabric, and we're going to just get going on the sewing, the fun part tonight. I'm actually hoping that we can get done or practically done sewing this block just tonight, so just in an hour. We'll see how we do. And then tomorrow we will start the embroidery. You can stop right at the sewing if you want, but I'm going to add all that extra texture with the embroidery, and I think it really adds a pop to the piece here. So, all right, I'll flip you around and we can see where we left off last night. Thanks again, you guys. Okay, there's our instructions on the iPad, and here we are. So we chose different fabrics. Let me scroll and see your guys' comments. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining me here. All right, so these are the fabrics that I did the block with. This is what's going to be in the official Aurifil quilt when they work on it. And I picked fabrics from my stash that I thought would work. So we got some neat yellows and oranges in here. The gray that I'm using throughout the quilt. And I just love this pop of red. And we found this cute little white fabric with these flowers. I'm really excited. I never would have thought I'd pick that fabric, but all those colors just go exactly with the quilt. So I'm really happy about that. So, all right, I'm going to move along. This is the pattern, the digital download. It is free from the Aurifil website. And I have it uploaded or just open on my web browser. And we did the cutting. So this is all done. I'm moving on to the sewing. So here are the instructions. We're going to start off by drawing diagonal lines on the wrong side. That's the back of the fabric for all of our little D pieces. Those are our little squares. So let's start there. I'm gonna shimmy these guys away. We don't need these fellers for a while. I'm gonna just plop them up to the top. And all right, let's shimmy all these out of the way as well. Right now we just need our 4 little pieces here. So I'm gonna zoom in for you. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to ultimately sew on the diagonal, and something that's really helpful, I think, for sewing on the diagonal is to actually draw the line. So you can actually just fold. If you fold on the diagonal, you can just kind of finger press by just like pressing down on here, and then you can see the fold line. Oftentimes I do that. And then skip this drawing the line part. But I think drawing the line on the diagonal is a little bit more accurate. So it doesn't really matter what diagonal, if you go this way or this way, just so long as you can see that line on one of the diagonals. So I'm going to do this on all 4 pieces. Easy peasy. So I saw a whole pile of your Tuscan lavender farmhouses so far over in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. They are turning out so dang lovely. I really, really love what you guys are doing with them. So if you haven't seen those yet, go check out the Penguin and Fish Crafters group on Facebook. And then if you want to share, go ahead and click join and we will let you in. All right, there we are. So that is all we have to do for that step. Okay, so next up, we are going to sew a D piece. That's what we just did to each end of the F piece. We'll press them and trim them. So that's next. So we just need 2. So I'm going to just put 2 to the side. We're going to take this piece here, and we are going to put the match this D piece to the end here. I'm going to just place them both at the same time. I'll probably readjust it a little bit, but what we're doing is we're having those diagonals go inward like this because we will be making our little house. So we'll be sewing right on that line, and then we'll be getting like that little roof that we're going with. So, all right. So I'm going to sew one, and then we will do the other. And then we will press them and trim. So, all right, let's get to the machine. I have my vintage machine here. If you guys are new and haven't seen it, this is what I've been, come over here. This is what I've been working on as of late. I like my vintage machine. So here it is. This is my 1938 Kenmore sewing machine. It has that cool crinkle finish, and it's one of these ones that are kind of just boxy and angular, and look how pretty, I mean, loose, tight. This is the tension, and it's just all around so cool. I love it so much. We sometimes call it the steampunk sewing machine, but I love it. So, all right. Here we go. So whenever I sew a triangle like this onto a rectangle, I sew from the part of the rectangle that's extended out. So I'll sew right here versus sewing around this way where it's just a point. If you're sewing with just a point, sometimes your sewing machine might want to try and push it down and eat it. So eat the fabric. So it always works best for me when I do the other side, when I start with that long flat edge. I'm going to grab my stiletto just to kind of hold everything in place here. And I'm going to go directly on that line. So this is that line that we just sketched. All right, and then I'm going to just throw a scrap piece of fabric there. All right, so I can snip it off without having like long threads everywhere. Okay, so that's our first piece. I'm going to sew our second one on right away. I'm going to have to replace it here. And again, so this one went this direction. This one we're going this direction. And I'm going to go this way now because I still want to sew along that long edge, not on just the point there. Alright. I kind of get started, and then I like using my stiletto, which is just a turkey lacer. I like using this just to hold the piece in place a little bit better. Okay, and that's it. And you know what, you guys? I think I'm going to do the next step as well. So I'm going to set this aside. The next step, we do basically the same thing, but with our two, these are the H pieces. So these are our like gray pieces that are going to be our trees. So the same thing, we're going to put the piece on one end here. One thing to look out for here, though, is we're going to have one go diagonal one way and one go diagonal the other way so that the trees are shaped in the opposite direction. So just keep that in mind versus doing, them both the same direction. If you end up doing them the same direction, that's going to be fine. Your trees will just be pointed in the same direction, and that seems okay. All right, so let's, since I'm at the machine, that's why I'm kind of doing this step all at once, even though this is the next part of the piece. So I can just continue. I have that one on the machine yet, and I can just continue with this one right away. Okay, let's get our little extra piece in there. And snip all those apart. Okay, let's go press these now. So a lot of times, when you see directions for a piece like this, you will you'll trim these pieces off or rotary cut these pieces off because this is extra. We actually don't need that. We ultimately want that to be a seam allowance, and we're going to press it like that. So this is all excess. If you forgot to cut it off and you sew it within your quilt, it's not going to matter. You just have a couple more layers of fabric there. So most of the time, when you read directions, you cut this off first. But my mom had a great tip, and I've been doing it ever since. I actually don't cut them off first. I press first because then I can use this edge while it still exists as a guide on where to line up the edges of my piece here so that everything should stay nice and rectangular. So I lined up those edges, and now I'm gonna give it a press. And we should have just like a perfect rectangle here. Oh, Kathy Sews Quilt says, I love the leader thing. That's our little piece of fabric that we start and end our sewing on. It saves so much thread. It does. I love it. It makes it easier for the sewing machine to like leap from one thickness of fabric to the next thickness versus starting at 0 and then jumping to the thickness of a fabric. And then, yes, you don't have to deal with all these little strings of thread everywhere. And so that saves the thread as well. Okay. So now we got our good rectangle because I've lined it up with the edges here. Now I can go ahead and trim these away. So I just use a scissors. I flip what we just pressed back a little bit. I don't want to accidentally cut that off. We need that. And I'm going to just trim like at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just like so. If you don't want to do that, you can for sure, put a cutting board underneath, but you can for sure take a rotary or a ruler and fold it back and then use a rotary cutter to trim it off. But I just go in with the scissors. Easy peasy. I like it. All right, so those are scraps. And then that's it. We are done with this piece. So that's what you should have when you're done. It's our little shape of the roof. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with these. So I'm going to fold it back, and I'm going to use this edge as a guide, lining up those edges. Thanks, Melanie. Oh, Melanie made a bunch of the pocket face masks. Yay! So I am going to list a few more of those soon because, man, all these college kids and everyone is going to need those soon, aren't they? And it's nice to have extras around because then you can do them all in the laundry all at once. Oh, so Tracy's asking, I was making a quilt out of the leaders and enders. So all these little pieces, instead of having just little scrap pieces, I was actually taking pieces like this and sewing them together. And then ultimately I was going to make a quilt out of those. I am not done with the quilt. You might be wondering, why am I not using those while I sew? And it's because I have to cut more. You guys, I'm realizing, so I just pressed this fabric I'm wondering if there's some material on this that I shouldn't be pressing so hot, because it feels like it's stiffened a little bit, like it almost melted a little bit. I don't know. I've been using it so far. It's kind of, this is a mysterious fabric for me. It was in my stash, and I happen to have enough of it. I wanted a gray fabric for this project to go throughout the whole piece. So I'm using it, but I don't quite know what it's made out of, but it feels like it stiffened up a little bit with these little pieces, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But all right, we have these fellers done as well. Okay, let's skip ahead then. So, all right, we've done our little roof, and we've done our little trees. These are going to end up being our trees. So that's step 3. Okay, so step 4, we are going to sew. We're going to sew our little roof to our house. I'm so excited for this cute little fabric there. All right, so we'll sew that. And then next up, we're just lining up our whole kind of scene already. Easy peasy. All right, so let's head back over here. And I'm just going to lay right sides together like so. You can clip or pin these together. I think it's small enough that you can just kind of line things up and just go for it. But if you're more comfortable like putting a clip in the middle or something, go ahead and do that. Okay. But yeah, so instead of putting just this little scrap piece, I was putting a whole nother like 2 squares together to make another like quilt block. But yeah, I'm just out of fabric. I'm not out of fabric. I'm using recycled like clothing for that project. I just don't have it. I have to cut more, so I need to spend like an evening here just cutting a pile more squares. I'm out of squares. Okay, so I'm going to press this, and I'm going to actually press the seam open. I'm going to just start giving that seam a press and then pressing it in one direction. Oh, just a side note, make sure that you sew it to the right side, the correct side. You're going to sew it onto that long red side. You don't want to sew it on the shorty side. Okay, so we press the seam in one direction here. Now I'm going to actually press it in the opposite direction, and it should kind of stand upright. It's very warm. And then I'm going to open it and then just press down the middle here. All right, and then let's give it one more quick press on the outside, and we are done with that. Okay, you guys, next up is the fun part. We get to kind of assemble our scene. So I'm going to just use the photo as a guide. There is instructions on, the written instructions on the order, but I'm going to just look at it. So we have this, and then we have the tree with the one that's angling in this direction. Then we have like a little spacer. And then we got this tree, which is near the house, and another spacer there. So you can have fun here. So I saw some of you guys in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group, you wanted the trees closer to the house, so you could totally switch these two and put the trees closer to the house. You could also, I don't know, make the trees go in opposite directions like that if you wanted. You could have them farther away from the house, whatever you want to do here. But I'm going to do it like the photo, the instructions. So do. And that guy in there. So, okay, we're going to just sew all these rows together. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to try and sew as much as I can without taking it off the machine. So I'm actually going to sew these 2 rows together. Then I'm going to go with these 2 rows and these 2 rows. Then I'll be able to take these off the machine and sew this, and then I'll have to take it off the machine and sew the last bit. So I know that seemed a little odd, but I think it'll make sense once I show you guys. So we'll start there. Okay, so first two, I'm going to flip it like this. Let's align that edge. This seemed to get a little bit shorter too, so I might not have, I'm going to try and stretch it a little bit. I might not have gone right on my diagonal line. Let's start sewing and then I'll try and stretch it a little bit. All right, with the needle down, I'm just going to try and align. This is that goofy fabric that's just acting silly for me, but there. I'm just aligning it to the bottom, and we'll try and just move it as we, like adjust it as we sew here. Okay, those are our first two pieces. Now let's grab those second two. So we actually have something that we want to look out for here. So we want to get a nice point to our house. So I'm actually going to put this big piece on top of the smaller piece, and what that's going to allow me to do, let's get this aligned as best as we can first. What this is going to allow me to do is see where that point is. So you can see this little triangle right at that point. That is the same point as this on the front. So to get that point, like going right to the edge and not like chopping off that point, we don't want to clip that point. I am going to try and sew right on top of it, and I can see it right there. So I'm going to aim for that as I sew. And that's why I want this piece on top. Okay, here we go. I'm aiming for that point right there. All right, I think we went right through it. Okay, now we're gonna go along the rest of the edge. Okay, we'll see how we did in a sec. Let's get these two pieces done. Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna do it this way because this piece is smaller. Sometimes I do the bigger piece on the bottom. Again, it's just that weird fabric, so I'm going to like force it a little bit. I'm going to just kind of stretch it a hair. You don't want to do this too much, but I think this weird fabric can take it. Okay, so now instead of taking this completely off the machine, I have those first two parts that I can take off right now without moving this. And well, first of all, here's our house. There we go. So the tip of that house is exactly perfect. It is right on our seam. That is a nice point. So that's what we're going to try and get on this side as well. But all right, so here's our second piece, and this is our first piece. So now I can flip both of those and sew it together. Let's sew this way again with this bigger piece, or the smaller piece on the top. See if I can adjust it at all. All right, now with the needle down, I'm just gonna kind of lay the rest here. Hold it down. Okay. Good, now we can take it off the machine because we need both of these pieces. I need the piece we just sewed and our earlier piece here. Big butt on the bottom, exactly, Bonnie. That's how I remembered it that one time. It's just the phrase, I think, is just big on the bottom, but in my head it was big butt on the bottom. All right, so there we go. So here's our final little tree area. So I'm going to flip it over here, and again, I'm going to flip it this way just so I can see this point here, even though this is kind of the little bit bigger piece. But so typically I'd put it on the bottom, but I want to see this point because that's what I'm going to aim for that nice point on the house. Ooh, yeah, my pieces are a little bit different in size now. I swear, I think pressing that shrunk it up a little bit. All right, I'm aiming for this point. I mean, it should be right on my 1/4 inch seam allowance, but if it's not, I'm kind of adjusting over for it. Okay, let's see how we did. That's it. And we have our little top going. Cute. All right, so here's this this point, and that's looking pretty good as well. All right, let's press this. All right, I'm gonna press all these seam allowances to the right, so I'm gonna have them all go that way. So actually, when I'm holding it like this, it'll be towards the left. It doesn't really matter, just so it's opposite direction of our next pieces that we are working with. You can also press all of these seams open. I know some people really like open seams versus to one side. I like to one side because it helps me match up my seams together better, and that's what we're going to be working on soon here. Okay, let's give it another little press on top. I always like giving it like a final press on top. Cute! All right, so there we are. So the last thing we kind of have to do with this top area is put our the top of our sky on. So now in theory, if you're sewing with a really good 1/4 inch seam allowance, this should be exactly the same size as our piece here, and I'm a little shy yet, which makes me think that I'm making my seam allowances a little too fat still. I need them skinnier so it leaves more of the fabric, but you know, it's something I'm always trying to get better at. But all right, so in this case, I'm gonna actually flip it this way because I have these points to worry about now, and I wanna be able to see the tips of those. So instead of putting this piece on top and sewing, I'm putting this piece on top and sewing. Plus, this is the bigger piece, so I like putting that at the bottom. So it's a little harder to see the points, you know, because I pressed that seam over it, but it's right where that thread crosses, so I'm going to have to pay attention to where that is. And here I can see it on this side, where that thread, where it gets to be an X, I want to go right through that X. All right, let's do it. Then the top of our piece is going to be done, and all we have left is just those bottom stripes that we're sewing together. That's easy. Man, we're definitely getting this done tonight. Yay! I'm really excited. So next up is embroidery, and that's the part that I mean, this is kind of why I like this block. You can do the sewing part in no time at all and be done. But if you want to go the extra bit, the embroidery, that will take some time. So I want to get this done as fast as we can, so we can spend some time on that. So I am kind of stretching this a hair as I go. Okay, so now here is my first bit. So I got to go like right there through the X, and it's about right here. Let's see how we do. So that's where I'm aiming. Okay, hopefully we did okay. And now the only other one I have to worry about is that next tree piece. I'm just kind of slowly going, placing each piece as I go. All right, now here's where that X crosses again. Right through the tip of that X is where I'm going. Or the crossing of that X. And hopefully we get the tip of that tree. All right, and last up, ooh, it looks like I was able to stretch this a little bit. I'm not actually really stretching, it's just, like I probably could have pressed it a little bit flatter, and that would have made these sides equal. So hopefully, now it's actually a little bit big on the top. We'll see how we do. It doesn't have to be totally perfect because, you know, we're going to be sewing it into the quilt and you won't see if any piece is bigger than the other. Okay. And here, let's see how we did. Ooh, there we go. That point is looking super good. Ugh, that's nice. Ooh, and this one, see, we missed it a little bit, but I didn't clip the point. Clipping a point would be like if you did it too much, like that. I mean, that's exaggerated a little bit. This, we're just a little shy of it, but that looks totally fine. We're got a little edge here, but that's fine too. It'll be in the quilt, so it doesn't matter at all. So, all right, let's press. I'm going to press the seam allowance towards this bottom area. It looks so like that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just press it up. I think it kind of wants to. Oh, wait, no, I'm on the wrong instructions. Yeah, we're going to press it towards the A piece. So it's going to just because there's so much going on, so much sewing, it's going to want to just lay up in this direction on top of the long piece. So I'm not fighting it. I'm just going to go with it. So let's just give this a nice press first. Here, let's rotate my mat there. I'm not used to working with such big blocks. So all of these blocks are going to be 12.5 inches, all of the Aurifil blocks. And I've been working on like the Splendid Sampler, which are just 6-inch blocks. And, you know, the Granny Square quilts are 9-inch blocks. So these 12-inch ones are pretty big for me. All right, it's looking pretty cute. All right, so there is our top. Awesome. I love it. Okay, so next up, we are going to do the bottom. And the bottom is just taking all of these pieces, and we already kind of have them laid out. It goes gray, orange, gray, orange, gray, orange. So we're going to just sew those together, and we're going to do the same process. I'm going to sew this one, these two, then these two, then these two. Then we'll take these two off the machine and sew them together, and then we'll take everything off the machine and sew those together. And we'll press, and then we'll get them onto this top piece there. Oh, Gretchen says she might just embroider smoke coming out of the top of the roof. Oh, that's a cute idea. Oh, Barbara says it was weird making a 12-inch block. I haven't made one in a long time. I know, it's a large block, but you know what? The nice thing about making large blocks is your quilt's going to get done so much faster because you can do less blocks. All right, again, I'm dealing with 2 different types of fabric here, and that's not the easiest thing to do. It was probably a poor choice when I decided to start this quilt to use this gray, but it was so pretty, and I knew I needed a lot of it because I was going to use it throughout the quilt. But man, it's not making my life easy at all. Okay, so there's our first 2. Here's our second 2. That's pretty purple. It's a woven fabric, like colored first. The thread is colored and then woven versus printed fabric. So it's the same on both sides. But it's squishier, it's a little thicker. Does not act quite the same. Okay, last piece. And then we'll take those 2 pieces off and sew. kind of kitty scratching these. I call it kitty scratching when you're so close to matching up an edge, like I'm this far away, and if you just kind of scratch the top piece, like you're scratching the top of a kitty's head, then it kind of gets everything in place. Kitty scratching. Okay, I'm going to leave that on the machine and grab these first two pieces. So how I remember the order that I sewed, so I sewed the first two first, and that's going to be the last thing on the machine here. So I'm going to actually just cut this one off, because then I know the order. So this was the first, this was 1 and 2. Okay, here we go. And then the next one that we sewed was 3 and 4, so I'm going to get those off. Okay, so here's 3 and 4, and we started with gray. So, all right, now these two go together. Okay. All right, now we need to take both of these off the machine. Okay, so this was our first 4. Pretty. And then our last 2. Okay, let's flip that. And this is it. All right, let's see what we got. Let's give this a press, and then we'll match our top and the bottom. Oh, you like the purple fabric? Sue is saying that she likes the purple fabric against the orange. Yeah, I like that there was just a little hint of this purple in here, and it's kind of fun. We got these stripes within our stripes. I think that's kind of neat. All right, so we want to press this in the opposite direction. So we are going to press these so that they end up, the seam allowances end up to the left. So the opposite, like if we flip these up, these are going to the right. We want these ones going to the left. So to the left. Yeah, you know what? I think there's something, I think I'm probably not supposed to iron this purple fabric. It just is acting funny. Like I feel like the iron slows down a little bit. I bet you there's something plasticky or something in here, polyestery, that doesn't want me pressing it. We thought it was maybe a linen blend or something, but I don't know if that should be getting like stiffer like how these are. All right. Cute. All right. Last up, you guys, we just have to match these two together, and we do have a couple things that we want to match up here. So we have a couple seams. These I want to match up. These seams, this seam and this seam, and then this seam and this seam. We want to match up. So how I'm going to do that, and I think I'm actually going to clip these because this is now kind of a long piece. So I'm going to grab my Wonder Clips here. And by pressing our seams in the opposite direction, so there you go, you can see this one's going to the left, this one's going to the right, we can then nest our seams. So just that fold that's created from pressing, those two folds, since they're going the opposite direction, will just kind of hit each other and bump up against each other. That's exactly what we want. You want to actually feel those folds. And then I'm going to just put a clip onto there. So what this does is that when I sew it, see, that line should end up perfectly together. That's our goal. So I'm going to put a clip on these other ones that should be nested together. So here we go, right here. Just bumping. It's called nesting, but I'm just bumping those two folds next to each other. And I don't always clip, but again, with this big, we have a large floppy piece now. And when the piece gets really big like this, I do like adding clips in. You can use pins as well. Okay, here's our last one, our last seam that we're going to bump those folds together. Okay. And I think we are good right there. All right, I'm gonna start on this end, I think, and work my way down here. Actually, it might have been better if I did it this direction, because these are the sides that were kind of lining up a little bit better. Yeah, you know what? I think I am. I'm going to do it this way instead. So my clips are upside down now, but you know what? Let's just flip them. You can do it either way, but my one piece is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. All right, there we go. Last seam. So someone mentioned a scant 1/4 inch, and that is exactly what I'm going for. So I've been saying a 1/4 inch. I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and what that actually means is that from the point that the needle is going into my machine to the edge of my fabric, I want to try and get that a scant 1/4 inch. And what a scant 1/4 inch means, it means like a 1/4 inch, but like literally a hair less. Like the thickness of a fabric less than a 1/4 of an inch. So actually smaller. So I want this to be slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch, but literally a hair. And then it's allowing for the thickness of the fabric when you press. So that it ultimately ends up being a full 1/4 inch, but your fabric has some thickness to it, so we have to address that, and that's why the scant 1/4 inch. It is a lifelong, I think, skill to get that perfect scant 1/4 inch, and I'm always working on it. If your block ends up too small, like smaller than it should, then you're making your scant 1/4 inch seam allowance too large. So the distance between here and the edge is too big. If your block ends up being too big, then you're making the distance from here to the edge too small. That's how I know kind of which way to kind of correct myself. But you know, sometimes you go a little too far, because really the tiniest amount of change is all you need. All right. You can put a piece of tape on your machine. I'm trying to do it without anything, just for practice. Trying to get better. But the more pieces you sew together, the more obvious it's going to be. All right, so I'm going to press this towards the bottom section. I think I'm going to just keep it open like this. Let's go the long way here. Then we'll take a peek in a sec here. But this is it for the sewing. So easy peasy. You still can work on some skills, like that scant 1/4 inch seam allowance and matching seam. So there we go. That matched up so well. They all did. So here's that seam. I wanted this seam to match up perfectly, so it's just continuing along this seam, and that came from that nesting those seams together. This one looks pretty dang good as well, and here's our last one. Yep, that one looks well and nested too, so that's great. So those all lined up perfectly. Let's just give this an all over squish here. So I am kind of trying to pull on certain pieces and stuff to kind of shape it a little bit. I know, again, I'm using that weird gray fabric, so I know that's an issue in all of my blocks that I'm doing for this project, for the Aurifil block, but I'm trying to adjust as best I can. But I think this turned out so sweet. We'll take a look at it in a sec, and you know what? We're gonna start prepping embroidery. I'm going to trace the windows tonight yet. And I think then we'll start fresh tomorrow on the embroidery. So let's take a look. All right, there we are. Oh, I like it. I just like this little flower fabric. I think that just turned out really kind of fun. All right, you guys, you can just stop right there if you want. I think we still, with this kind of gray, I think that implies, like from far away, like these lavender fields or these cypress trees. You can just kind of stop here if you don't want to do any of the embroidery. I am going to do more. I think like some people used florals within here. I know someone used poppy fabric for the orange that had poppies in, so that was almost like a poppy field. Oh yes, I was wondering that too. So Deborah's asking any poppies for embroidery. So you could actually do this exact same pattern with the lavender. I was actually thinking about that originally for this, but I decided to keep it with lavender. So all of these are a bunch of single chain stitches, and I'll be showing you how to do those stitches tomorrow. But if you wanted to use red, like if you wanted to make a field of poppies instead of a field of lavender, I would do that same stitch, but I would use red thread, like poppies or poppy colored thread, and I would go in the orange instead, because that's kind of more of that poppy color. I think that would look amazing. Actually, you know what? My fabric kind of looks like that already. My fabric kind of has like built-in poppies kind of there, so that's a little fun. But all right, I'm gonna try and transfer the windows in here. I think I can do it without a light table just because I have this light colored fabric here, so let's see how I do here. I've printed out the last page of the pattern just in black and white. You want to press it, or you want to print it at actual size or 100%, and you can measure to make sure that you got it there. So these are like little measurement tools to check, and yeah, so this one should be one inch, and that looks pretty good. And then if you use metric, then this should be 3 centimeters. So I know that it was printed out the right size. And these are our farmhouse windows, so our little windows there. So I'm going to just, this outer edge represents the outer edge of our piece here. I'm going to see if I can see through this, and I hope I can. Okay, good. There. I can see through it. You can see those little lines there. If you have a light table, that would work extra swell. Otherwise, you can use, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually tape this to my table here. I think that's going to be helpful for me. I had some blue tape here 2 seconds ago. All right, maybe I'm not going to tape it. All right, but you can tape this to like a bright window and then tape your piece on top of it, and that's a really easy way to trace. I'm going to just kind of try and line it up here. All right, I think we're looking good there. So I'm just going to take a pencil. I'm going to just take a normal, just a mechanical pencil and trace these lines. You could use a water-soluble marker, but sometimes just a sharp pencil can do the trick. So these windows, I'm going to use a satin stitch. You could use a back stitch if you wanted. You could put little like window panes in. But in all the pictures that I was looking at for like these Tuscan farmhouses, it just kind of looked like these little rectangles from far away. So I wanted them kind of filled in. Okay, so there we are. That is where all our little windows will go. Oh, Colleen says that she's done and it measures 12.5 inches. Perfect. So that's ultimately what your piece here should measure out to. That's actually what all of your blocks for this project should measure out to, 12.5 inches square. And then when they're sewn in the quilt, then they'll end up being 12 inches because we're going to lose the seam allowance on all the sides. But all right, you guys, so we are ready to go for tomorrow. I don't think we're going to do any embroidery tonight, but man, that sewed together fast, and I was just kind of taking my time as well. So I have some purple floss. So this is that DMC 554. It did take me quite a bit of floss. You might be able to use just one skein, but if you're going to be doing like all of these fields like this, these are like lazy daisy or single chain stitches, and those actually kind of take quite a bit of thread. So I'm going to be stitching them with 2 skeins ultimately, because I'm probably going to finish the one. We'll see how it goes. But I'm actually going to also be splitting the strands into 3. So these come with 6 strands, 6-strand embroidery floss. I'm going to split them into 3 strands as we stitch, so they come apart pretty easily, and I'll show you how I like taking it apart when we start stitching tomorrow. So I think I'll probably start with, well, we can do whatever we want. We'll see what you guys like tomorrow, but we can do the satin stitch first or the chain stitches. I think maybe I'll start with one of these rows of chain stitches, and then we can do these windows. I suspect it might take a day each, an hour each to do these 3 rows. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, tomorrow is Thursday, so this might be Thursday, Friday, and then we might work on this Monday and Tuesday yet. So. Of next week, but we will work on this until all of the stitching is done. But again, that's why I wanted to get the block done quick, the sewing done quick, because this embroidery is going to take a little bit of time. But that's kind of the slow-paced, relaxing part of this. So all right, I'm going to flip you around and we'll call it a night here, guys. All right, hello again. So let's take a look. And again, you can leave it at this stage if you want. Ooh, you can see that purple stripe in the middle, can't you? That's fun. This stripe is so much lighter than the other 2, which is kind of interesting. I like it though. I'm excited. Okay. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out with the different colored fabrics. I'm excited. So we'll do the stitching tomorrow. And then when we're done with this, again, you guys, this month's embroidery of the month is the fabric scissors. So there's a PDF pattern of this, a printable pattern, and also the whole bundle that comes with my floss line in there. We'll be stitching that right when we're done stitching this. So if we get done with this on Monday, we'll start the fabric scissors on Tuesday. If we get done with this on Tuesday, we'll start it on Wednesday. But again, right when we're done with the Aurifil block of the month, we'll be working on the embroidery of the month. So thanks, you guys. It was really nice sewing with you again tonight. Check out the free pattern and the blog post for this with the links below, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great evening. Good night.